books, reading, keeping track of books and reading, and keeping a journal. That's an interesting idea and one that's new to me, but we're going to be hearing about that this morning from our favorite book aficionado and resident bibliophile, Ann Davis East, who's back to join us today and teach us a little bit about how we can keep track of the books we've read and the books we want to read. So put on the brakes, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation because it is time once again for Coffee Breaks with Steve. Most of you, if you've been around and been on Coffee Breaks with Steve for any length of time, you know our next guest, my next guest, our guest, who's going to be joining us. She has been here multiple times and often talks about authors or books that she is reading or that she has read and wants to recommend to us. She's got a little bit of a different viewpoint today, something else that she wants to talk about, and it's how to keep track of our reading, the ones that we've already read and the ones that we may want to consider. And so let me just welcome back to Coffee Breaks with Steve, our friend Ann Davis East. Ann, good to have you back here. Oh, you're on. I think you're muted. Let me unmute you because I think that's on my. All right, you're unmuted now. That was my fault.
I was just saying good morning, afternoon. Liked your conversation. Remember, tomorrow is Boston Marathon.
That's right.
Which is held the Monday of Patriots Week. And my children's former nanny is running in the marathon tomorrow.
Wow. And today I saw they were actually commemorating, this is sort of a dark day in our history, but it again, it's kind of like thinking back over the last 3 years and the beginning of the pandemic. But they were saying that we're at the 10th anniversary of that infamous bombing at the Boston Marathon. And it's like, how can that possibly already be 10 years? That seems surreal in a lot of ways. But yeah, the running of the marathon tomorrow should be, I don't know what's the weather forecast. It looked like it was pretty good weather there today, but I'm hopeful with some of the weather they've had in the East Coast and New England states, it's not too hot.
Yeah.
But
so I haven't checked.
I haven't either.
Yeah. So as you said in the intro, I've been doing a lot of books and authors, and I decided that if you're like me, you have lists every place. I have a list in my purse. I have a list on my phone. I have a list here and everywhere else. So I thought what we could talk about today is how to keep track. And I have 2 book journals that I keep. One is for my business leadership and those type of things. And then I have the one that's kind of my fun reading. And so, as I said, I belong to 4 leadership book clubs. So trying to keep those all straight is fun. So what I have is and I don't keep a specific. You can go on Amazon and you can buy a journal that's specifically for book reading. I started out with just a college rule spiral notebook that I did, and then I just kind of gradually increased. Now I use Moleskine is one of my. Kimberly wants to know which one is more full. They're pretty equal. So I would say the summer probably my fun one has more books in it because I have more time. So I have a Moleskine, I generally will label it, on the inside that it's business book, business leadership, or it's my fun books. Sometimes I will keep uh, different colors. This, oops, let me, oh, it's not here. Huh. I was going to show you my, show you one, but this time it's orange is for my business. Then, and I also do different sizes. Um,
No.
the one in my purse is more of the um, 4 by 8 or something. The
Hmm.
one that is next to the bed in those is the 8 by 11. Just because I tend to write more in one than the other. And then I label my first page is called TBR, which are to be read, and those are the books that if I hear somebody recommends or whatever, I write down. But I also, when my in my to be read, is I have the title and the author, who recommended it. So, did a friend recommend it? Did I get it
Okay.
from a book review online or those type of things? Um, why do I want to add it to my list? Is it something that is really like, I'm not a science fiction reader, so I probably wouldn't have science fiction in my list. And when did I add it? So, did I add it last year, 2 weeks ago, whatever? So again, I know. And then what I do is I take a post-it note and I look at my to be read list, and I take 5 books. It doesn't necessarily have to be the first 5 on my list. I kind of just take those 5 books are my next books that I will read. Um, and
Okay.
that goes again, I can put it in my book, I'll put it on my phone, those type of things. And then after I read the book, I will, if it's a fun book, I will just write a little review myself. So, it's the book I read, the title. Sometimes I'll write down how long it took me to read it, because some
Okay.
books are, you have to read to really get into the book. So
Hmm.
I'll do, um, you know, we'll say, okay, I had to read the first 3 chapters to really get into the book, and then it took me, another week to finish it. And then just a brief description of the book. It's the story of for those things. If it's a business book, I do the same thing, but with a business book, I tend to underline. And so in my business journal, I will put the page number of what I underlined with a brief
Oh,
little description. So if I need to go back to quote something or whatever,
yes.
I don't have to go through the whole book.
I
Um,
like that.
yeah. So some people, I am not a fancy a book journal person. Some people will put stickers in it and have different color pens, and just as you would
Yeah.
your day planner. I'm not that type of person.
I think that depends on your personality, right? And how you like to organize and keep track of things. I also curious, I see people making some comments and notes out here, and would just love to see if anyone has or is currently keeping any kind of a book journal themselves, how they go about doing that. Because there are a lot of, as you said, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. Some people may keep it online. I'm kind of like you, is that when I'm doing journaling, I like to actually handwrite things. There is something about the motor process of thoughts coming out of your head and going to a pen that for some things does make a difference, even in terms of memory, as opposed to just, typing it on a keyboard. So I'm curious about other people, but you were mentioning some of the things that you do to track. I've also seen some examples recently. I was looking some things up because I haven't, as I mentioned before, done any kind of a book journal, and saw that some people will write down, the book that they've read, even a fun book, a novel or something like that. They will write down sort of key plot points, and like you said, you do a review, sometimes even a key quote or something that they picked up from the book. And I think there are just a lot of different ways to do it, once again, depending on your personality. You provided a couple of examples here we're going to put up
Yeah.
that show different, and I don't know if these were from yours or just pictures that you yourself found that represent the kind of journaling that people might consider doing.
Yeah, they're kind of, these are just samples, but you'll see the back one is the books that you've read. Um, the middle one is books that you want to read. And then the purple is my priority. So those are the 5 books that I want to read next. And that's really how I journal. Um, is that. And then the other one is always make sure you mark off the books that you've read.
Yeah,
So
so that
you kind of keep track.
Yeah. I,
Uh,
I think that there is also with this, you could definitely find, that you would really want to, as you're reading a particular book, maybe it's the first time you've read that author, that one of the things you might want to record is, kind of highlight or look up some of what's the next book on your, either your priority or your to read list. What are the other books by this author that I want to look up? And that could be for fun books or for leadership books, right?
yeah, yeah, and it's just really. I get asked, and I'm sure a lot of you do, what book are you reading? What book do you recommend? Those things. I actually am starting doing it, working with my almost 10-year-old granddaughter, putting together a book journal for her. Um,
Nice.
she is dyslexic, and so we've been working on books that and we're beginning to get into chapter books, but we need to remind ourselves of what time, how long they can be. Um,
Right.
you can't give her the Lewis Carroll um, Alice in Wonderland and expect her to read 20 pages a night, um, because she struggles with 2 or 3 pages. So,
Right.
and she's got books that she wants to read. So,
Well, and you mentioned that with your granddaughter, and I was thinking of my grandson. I think I have several grandchildren, and I'm sure this is true for all of them in one way or another. But I know that my 7-year-old grandson, it's been a big deal since I think kindergarten, if not that, then first grade, that he keeps a reading log. Now, in his case, he turns that in to show what books he's read, and that takes him through the entire year and through the summer. He gets extra credit or points, or earns points toward different prizes or something if he turns in a certain number of books that he's read. But it has to get signed off by a parent. Yes, you actually did read that, and he has to be able to talk about what the book was about when he's done. And I think that's a great starting point. Wouldn't it be great to think about getting kids who are starting to do that for school purposes to just continue the process of journaling throughout their lives and keeping track? So many of us, I think, we read, and we kind of, it can be a hit and miss process sometimes. You said sometimes it takes a while to get into a book, or if we're tracking more than one, we may be reading for fun and we may be reading for business purposes. And sometimes those overlap, and we got to keep track of where we are, where we left off. I mean, bookmarks, book placeholders are definitely good. But the idea of even being able to mark what you've underlined in a book, I love that. You gave another example here of, and this one is obviously demonstrating a to be read and
yeah.
a format that could be kept.
Right. Yeah. So this one outlines the process the title, the author, why I want to read it, when did I add it, so you can kind of see some dates and stuff. Um, and so
Yeah.
that's it. Some people will ask me, you have the to be read, and then you have kind of your review, and how do you keep those separate? And
Yeah.
I don't really do that per se. I just use the next page because I'm constantly adding books, and I just highlight to be read. Um,
I'm curious, Anne, as to how many, if you even know, how many volumes you currently have of book journals that you, from those that you have kept over a period of time. Do you have multiple, and do you ever go back and review things that either in your business books to go back and look for specific things that you want to, oh, I know that in that book there were some great points and I know I underlined them. I presume part of the reason you want to document what you underlined is to be able to go back as a reference point. But do you ever go back and just review even some of the fun books you've read just to see there was one from way back when that you'd like to go back and revisit?
I do, and I probably have about 10 book journals combined. And I do, there's one book that I consistently go back to every summer. And that is, and then the name, of course, like you, I have a senior moment, just went out, but it's a James Michener book, and it's about five kind of late teen, early 20s that go through Europe.
Hmm.
And I read, it was a book that my mother brought with her when we went to the 1972 Olympics in Munich. And my
Whoa.
sister and I finished our books that we had brought. And my mom was kind of halfway through this Michener book. And so what she did is she cut it into thirds, and she gave each one of, so my sister would read
Okay.
the first third, and then my mom would give her the second, and I would get the first, or however,
Wow.
so we could all read it. And I consistently go back to that book every summer. um, and
Interesting.
it's just one of those, I think, that really just resonates, that it was the first time my sister, my mom, and I read a book together. um,
Interesting. I love that idea too. Very much a family memory in that event. Kathy Garlick has mentioned here a couple of times using Goodreads. I know she uses Goodreads to track and to review books, and talked about keeping track online. And I mean, that's an option for some people, right? I mentioned specifically that if I'm journaling something, I like to handwrite, but it is definitely a thing these days that there are a lot of resources, whether once again, I'm certain you can purchase and or download online journals of various forms. And a lot
yeah,
of people do keep their journals just in general through online, either word processors or journaling apps. And that can be done as well with some of the reading platforms that are available. So that's certainly right. That's a workable option for people who prefer to do it that way.
yeah. I keep Kimberly wants to know what my pen of choice
Saw
is.
that.
Whatever's handy. I know that's a scapegoat answer. Um, depends in the last slide. I do have some, but I really just kind of use whatever is handy. I'm not a specific person. Um, but yeah, it's just what I do is I'll take my five books that I want to read next, and I'll put them on my phone. So if I'm at the library, I will look up and see if they're available. If I'm at a bookstore, I'll look and get those. So I do that. Um, Most women will know that their purses are like suitcases. Um, so the more you put in, the heavier it gets. But so I will do that. I also want to say another place that's a good place to get books and review is it's called the Mrs. Darcy Modern Day Mrs. Darcy, and
Okay.
she does have a journal, um, a book journal that you can purchase, but she also has really good books, and I go there as well.
Okay. Very
And
good.
she has a summer reading challenge that you can sign up to do, and depending on how many books you read and stuff, you qualify for little prizes.
And once again, can you say the name of that site?
Um, the modern day Mrs. Darcy, and I'll send that to you.
Okay, I was just kind of, oh, I see it here. The modern Mrs. Darcy. I see it here.
Yes,
Okay,
thank
just
you.
doing some side things. So I'm going to drop that in the chat, the website right now, and we'll continue. Yes, we'll put that on the Facebook page as well. So if anyone wants to go back and check that out, they can. And we're short on time now, partially because I rambled on so much before you joined us. But this is great information. You actually inspired me because I'm one of those people who tends to start a book and then I'll set it aside, and then later on I go, oh yeah, I was going to finish reading that book. And I think a journal of that sort, going through that process, I know that, as Kathy said, that, for some people it slows them down. I think for me it might be a better way of organizing my reading, because I do the same thing you do. I have the fun books, I have the business books, I have inspirational books, I have all these different categories that I'm trying. Sometimes I'm doing workbooks with other people in different sessions, and so this is great information. Ann Davis East, I want you to start thinking about what you're going to bring back to us the next time, because it won't be that much longer. And we're going to have you back on Coffee Breaks with Steve with another great bit of information. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. And please, if you have any suggestions or want to show a sample of your book journal, send it to Steve, and Steve can
We'll
send
post
it on
those.
to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Ann Davis East, take care. We'll be seeing you again very soon.
Thank you. You guys all have a great week.
Thanks. Man, I always, wait, what do I want to say? Never or always. I always come away when Anne joins us with new inspiration, new ideas. And this was a great one. Lots of times, of course, it's great when she comes with a list of authors or books within a certain genre. This one kind of caught my attention in an entirely different way. So I'm looking forward to seeing if I can get myself doing some book journaling of what I've read. I've got some that I'm currently reading and some that I know I should be getting to. So yeah, good. That's good information. Hey, in the last few minutes that we have here, I just want to share with you some things that are coming up in the next few weeks on Coffee Breaks with Steve. Next week, we're going to have, I think this is going to be fun. In fact, this is going to be interesting. This is the first time since the very beginning of this year. We're in mid-April. This is going to be the first time since the beginning of January, very beginning of January, that there will not be a guest joining on Coffee Breaks. It's just going to be me, but it's going to be me and you. I want you to be here for this one. We're going to talk about financial etiquette. And it's an interesting topic because it deals with a variety of things that we sometimes often encounter. And how should we be dealing with this? We had an episode just a few weeks ago with Analia Young just talking about manners and etiquette in general. This is different. It's talking about things like what is the propriety and the appropriate code of conduct in dealing with different things. Splitting checks with people in a restaurant. Who picks up the check? How do you split? How do you have those conversations so it's not awkward? What about tipping? That's a very controversial thing now for different services. Who do you tip? How much should you tip? Should tipping be mandatory or not? A number of things there that we're going to talk about. So come back next week and be prepared to come with your questions about financial etiquette in different places and situations. And it's sort of looked at differently, even by generationally and culturally, it's looked at differently. So we're going to talk about that. And then in 2 weeks, We're going to have a great, this lady is hilarious to begin with. Thank you, Rick Venturi, for the introduction. But Leanne Joshua is going to be here. She is the accidental comic. She is a humorist, a stand-up comic, and she does a variety of things in business environments where she will go in and teach and do workshops on the value of humor in the workplace, but also just in our daily life. And her story itself is amazing. So please be back here in a couple of weeks for that. And then in 3 weeks, I have another great speaker here who's just going to come and chat with us. But Patrick Jinks, you can, I mean, I'm not going to read this little bio that's on here right now, but this man is amazing and an expert on leadership, an expert on organizational development. He's an author, he's a speaker, he's a TEDx speaker, and he's going to be coming to talk about leadership, not just in business situations, but in daily life. We all are leaders in one way or another, either formally or informally, in a variety of ways. We're just going to have a conversation about what does it mean to be a leader and how do we properly exercise leadership in daily life. If you have topics or ideas or guests that you would like to see us bring on Coffee Breaks with Steve, you know how to get in touch with me. I wish you would. Please do. As I mentioned with people like Leanne, that's come from suggestions and introductions from you, from people who are part of this group, who are part of our table. We sit around each week. So please let me know if there is a topic or if there is a person you would like to see as part of Coffee Breaks with Steve. And just to finish up, thank you so much for being a part of Coffee Breaks with Steve. Thank you for being here. Some of you every single week, and I am honored and humbled that we have this time together. Whatever you're doing in the coming week, please do continue to take care of yourself. You can't be taking care of other people. You can't be taking care of business in your life if you're not taking care of you as well. And as I say that, I just also want to remind you to please find a way to make a difference in your world this week. God bless you. Have a great week. I'll see you next time.